Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This world is not a stable place. And what we see in this world is an illusion. Yet, there comes times when we are not cognizant of the illusion and treat it like it's real, because we have an attachment to the certain illusion that is going on at the time. The world right now is in turmoil. But if you look at history, when wasn't the world in turmoil? Prior to the present situations, there were other situations. And prior to them, there were others. World War I, the war to end all wars. World War II followed within a few years after that. Then the Korean War. Then the Vietnam War. Then the Cold War. Then the war in Ukraine. Then the war in Israel. Then the war in Iran. Pick and choose your war. And what people do is they pick and choose their situations. Some they react to, and some they don't react to. Why is it that you react to some and you don't react to others? Why is it that certain things push your buttons and others don't? Why do you become so upset with certain situations in the world, yet you barely give thought to other situations in the world? Right now, there's some major conflicts going on in Africa. Most of us don't know anything about them because they're not really covered in our news. So we don't react. We don't have strong feelings about it. But we have strong feelings about other things. Suppression goes on in the world on a constant basis. Suppression in different ways and in different places. War goes on in the world on a constant basis. Different wars in different places. We are calling ourselves Sufis. What does a Sufi try to do? He tries to escape from the world. And to escape from the world is not an easy thing because the world surrounds you and it tries to grab you and it tries to take you with it. Satan's involvement is to get us involved in the instability of illusion and to make us believe that somehow through our effort we can change that instability. We are actors that are capable of altering the phenomenon of the instability that exists. But it needs to be understood quite simply that fire and water are two of the elements in creation, and they don't get along. Earth and fire don't get along. Wind and fire don't get along. Water doesn't get along with fire or earth. We have floods. We have tornadoes. We have all kinds of physical phenomenon that take place in the elements surrounding us. Well, inside everyone is the same thing that goes on outside. We have within us earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and different kinds of phenomenon. Why? Because all of the elements that are outside of us are also inside of us. To show the instability of creation last week, the largest earthquake in history was recorded off the coast of Russia. It was strong enough that they were afraid of tsunamis on the west coast of America in California and tsunamis off Japan. The earth shook with such ferocity that it affected most of the world. Well, men shake with ferocity. Men become ferocious. And these men think that through their ferocity, they can alter the course of history and they can manipulate history and manipulate events in the world. Russia has been at war now for 3 years, thinking that it was going to end it all within a couple of weeks. The same thing is happening around the world. There are those who wish to manipulate form, and they find that one way to manipulate form is through war. Another way to manipulate form is through suppression. Another way to manipulate form is to take people's freedom away. They think that by doing that, you can alter what's going on around you. Within the last week, the newspapers reported that 100 people were arrested in Pakistan who were supporters of Imran Khan because of his being an opposition political party. In other parts of the world, people try to enforce religion with laws like if you dare to become an apostate, if you leave the religion, you are subject to death. Everyone is trying to force everyone into certain modes of behavior. And people are constantly rebelling against these modes of behavior and don't like being suppressed, don't like being told what to do, don't like being brought under the control of the situation. In the West, especially, we feel free. And when suppression comes, we react. Now, one man's suppression is another man's idea of freedom and and law and order. Another man thinks of it as suppression. There are so many different points of view in the world. And as long as we continue to have worldly points of view, we are going to find ourselves in an uproar over what's going on. Why? Because we have expectations about the way they should be. We have expectations about how things should turn out. We have expectations about how things should be and how we expect them to be. Is it possible that we can get to the point where we understand that the world is unstable, is going to continue to be unstable, and is going to have things happen in it that are not to our liking? Can we focus on that which is stable and that which is without change, that which is without trauma, that which is without difficulty? Can we do this? And what does that mean? That means, can we try to focus on divinity as opposed to focusing on this world? Can we focus on the fact that this journey of life that we're on is a temporary one and not treat it as if it were everlasting? Can we focus away from this temporary journey onto the everlasting journey? Can we learn how to do that? There are those who've come to the conclusion that they don't want to live in this world. They've come to the conclusion that the world isn't going to change, and it certainly isn't going to change from the externalities of trying to change it. So, what have they done? They've cloistered themselves. They've gone to monasteries and they have concluded that their only alternative in this existence is prayer. And prayer alone is the solution. And what God wills is what will occur. And acceptance is what we should have. And the ability to abide by what's going on without judgment and without interaction is the path that is the most discreet and the most profitable for our well-being. But we are subject to the world, and Satan is constantly intruding into our being, telling us that we need to be involved, telling us that our actions are going to make a huge difference. My sheikh said to me once, unless you've reached a transcendent level, unless you've come to the point of enlightenment, your decisions stem from ignorance. If your decisions stem from ignorance, then what chance have you of making correct action in the world? So your focus, my focus, all of our focus should be on becoming transcendent. Upon becoming transcendent, our point of view changes. Upon beginning to understand reality, our point of view changes. But without that occurring, we only have a point of view that is grounded in ignorance. And a point of view that is grounded in ignorance is not going to take us anywhere. It's not going to bring about any kind of result that's fruitful. It's just going to bring about something that we, in our ignorance, think is a solution. It is a sum of unintended consequences. It is a sum of doing things that seem right and then turn into something else entirely. On world events, it's not an uncommon situation. I'll give you one example. When Russia invaded Afghanistan, America helped the Afghanis by giving them arms in order to be able to suppress the invading Russians. What did that do? It ended up arming a country that became an enemy of the United States and was contra to our objectives. We, in fact, brought about someone we had to then react to, or at least that was the common thought at the time. Ignorance can only bring about unintended consequences. Ignorance can't bring about love. Love can break through ignorance, and love can bring about an end to ignorance. But love in a time of arrogance, love in a time of heated anger, love in a time of very strong attachments, love in a time of very powerful points of view and very powerful expectations, love is very hard to bring to the surface because the emotions overwhelm love and stop the ability of love to come into existence. Hatred stops love. Strong opinions stops love. Expectations stop love. Expectations basically say, I need the following to happen in order for peace to exist within my being. I need the following to happen in order for me to relax and be able to go on with my existence. What's going on right now is so overwhelming that my entire being is involved in reacting to that, and I don't have the power to find peacefulness within myself because of it. I don't see the justice in it. I don't see the fairness in it. I don't see the equality in it. I only see situations that are grossly out of control, grossly out of touch, and are grossly hindering the progression of man. Well, the word man is an all encompassing term. And when one begins to believe that they can change the course of public opinion, they are sadly mistaken. You may be able to change the opinion of a few people around you, but to change world opinion is really quite difficult and quite impossible. We have so many counter forces, so many opposite forces, so many opposite points of view, so many opposite ideologies that it's very, very difficult to find common ground. I find right now in America, the political parties, the people on either side, are incapable of hearing the other side. Not only do they continue to argue against them, they can't hear their arguments. There is no discourse any longer. There's just pointing and screaming and forcing opinions. And this isn't common to our country. This happens all over the world. These points of view have been opposite for as long as man existed, and man has been in conflict for as long as man existed. And they come into conflict over so many different things. They come into conflict over real estate. They come into conflict over religion. They come into conflict over nationalities. They come into conflict over power. They come into conflict over wealth. Um, Economists have said in the 1700s that there's only so much to go around, and the world is in a competition for that amount, and everybody wants to get their piece. But in order to do that, conflict arises because everybody needs it, but there's only so much. So, what is one of the keys to understanding reality? What is one of the keys to becoming at ease, at repose, at equanimity? We have to stop needing. We have to stop having to have our way. We have to be able to speak to those who want to be spoken to, and those who don't want to be spoken to, move on. Um, there are those who scream, "We will bring peace to the world, and we will kill as many people as we have to in order to accomplish that end." Well, that's the way of the world. All of a sudden, death becomes a road to peace. Death becomes the solution to all of the difficulties. These aren't solutions. And we have, and we can't forget this, we have an eternal soul that we have to take care of. We have to be very careful about our own involvements and our own actions. We have to stay within mercy, within compassion, within justice, within kindness, and within love. And if we stray from that in order to bring about mercy, compassion, justice, kindness, and love, what we've done is we've altered that which we have been trying to bring in as our touchstones. We've altered that which we're trying to make the core of who we are. So, what happens is, out of compassion, people create situations that are not compassionate. Out of compassion, people create situations that create difficulty. Out of compassion, people think it's okay to use force. Out of compassion and mercy, people think it's okay to bring power into the equation to force things to happen in a certain way. It all comes back to trying to manipulate the world, to trying to manipulate form. Somehow, we have to stop trying to manipulate things. We have to stop trying to believe that we can manipulate things. We have to stop trying to think that now is the time for action. It's always the time for action. But the question is, what is the action that it is time for? And this is the crux of the question. If we see the need for action, what is the action that we should take? What is the action that is appropriate? And the action that's appropriate is always the use of divine qualities. The action that's appropriate is always mercy. The action that's appropriate is always compassion and justice and love and kindness. That is always the action that is appropriate. And if you can't bring those qualities into action, you're going to end up bringing qualities into action that stem from the thought process that indicates to you that you can manipulate form, that you can make things happen as you will. And what this, in essence, does is it usurps the power of God. Because now you're saying, I can do what God didn't. Now, to believe that God is in charge of everything and in control of everything is something that's told to us in the sacred and holy texts of every religious way. But how many people actually believe it? And when their attachments become attacked, when their attachments begin to be shown as being in danger of having something done to them that they don't want, all of a sudden reactions change. And all of a sudden, the path of divinity changes into the path of power. The path of truth changes into the path of power. And man begins to believe that he has the power to alter circumstances. Man begins to believe that God needs his help in order to bring the world to a state that the world should be in. The arrogance of man is beyond measure. So, what is it that we individually should do? We individually should increase the amount of our prayer. We individually should increase our devotion to truth. We individually should increase our belief that God can intervene in any situation and bring about that which is appropriate. We individually have to increase our belief in God. We have to believe that He is the doer and the maker and the creator and the one that rules all, not man. Man often has this absurd realization that we are protected by our armies and our weapons and the ability to use them in time of difficulty, when in truth, we are protected by God. When in truth, we are protected by His hand. And when we lose touch with that, we lose touch with reality. And then we make ourselves part of this unstable world. We make ourselves part of the instability that causes all of the difficulty in the world. We bring ourselves into that place where we are part of the instability that causes unintended consequences and all of these real difficulties in every phase of existence. But to get away from that, to be able to somehow alter our involvement, alter our attachments, takes intervention towards us. In my case, that intervention was my sheikh. We were once hosting a group of clerics from around the world who were traveling through America, who had come to our fellowship house to try and understand Sufism and what was going on in Philadelphia. And one of the clerics came and talked to me about what he noticed. And in essence, he was right. He said, "You are not cloistered here. You have the freedom to move, but in essence, your sheikh has created a monastery for you. He's limited your actions. He's limited your interaction with the world. He's refocused you towards that one truth, which is God." So in essence, even though there are no walls here, even though the doors aren't locked, even though they aren't grounds that you can't get outside of, even though there are no rules that keep you here, you are kept here. And you are as if you were in a monastery. But instead of having monastic rules, you have monastic intention. You have monastic ideas within you. You have decided to cloister yourself from the world while being in the world. So we need to enter in that phase of existence where we can act as if we believe in the world, but in truth, only believe in God. When we begin to believe in our politicians, it means we have lost our faith in God. When we begin to rely on the government to take care of us, we've lost our faith. Part of the subtle understanding of communism and the satanic influence within communism is that man gives up his faith in God in belief that man can create a system that is equitable to all men, that man can create an unselfish system that covers the needs of all people. And man can do this willingly and can do this in such a way that all will be treated equally eventually. And it's been tried because it is, from an academic point of view, it sounds good to people. And people who are academics deal in words, they don't deal in reality. Deal in words, they don't deal in action. And when you deal in words alone, incredibly dangerous things can happen. We need to get away from discussing things and start doing things. And what is it that we need to do? We need to do that which has been prescribed for us by our Lord. We need to do what God told us to do. So we need to change our consciousness. Our consciousness has to become in touch with reality. Our consciousness has to come in touch with understanding truth. Our consciousness has to understand that this phase of our existence is a temporary manifestation and one day will cease to exist. Part of the problem is that our mind, which is of the earth, is incapable of imagining a world without us in it, is incapable of seeing our own demise, is incapable of understanding that we will pass from this phase into another phase, and that this is not a permanent state for us. So what happens is we all deal with it as if it is a permanent state. And in order to buttress that point of view, we write everything down. We write everything that happened down as if it were some sort of continuum that goes on and on and on. In the law, we have created something called a corporation. A corporation is a fictitious entity that has no demise. It continues to function because it's on paper. It doesn't end. Different people can move in and out of the corporation and run it, but when people die, the corporation remains. Well, we treat our lives as if it were like that, like it isn't going to end. So, as we are spending all this time trying to think about how to fix the world, shouldn't we simultaneously at least be thinking about how we can fix ourselves so that we are prepared for the next phase of existence? Imagine a phase of existence that doesn't have a body. Imagine a phase of existence that is consciousness without the eyesight that sees the world. Imagine a state of existence that is without form. Imagine a state of existence that is everywhere at once. Imagine moving into that state of existence and that is going to become available to you. The Sufis speak about dying before death. And what that means is to transcend our limited understanding of who we are, our limited understanding of ourself, and expand into a unified understanding of the fact that all is one, that God is one, and all there is one. But we are so confined into our egocentric self that this thought not only becomes a difficulty for our brain to comprehend, we become afraid of it. We believe that somehow, if we understand unity, we lose identity. And we are ignorant of the fact that identity is an illusion. Identity is a delusion. And the only reality is unity. And when unity is understood, transcendence occurs. When unity is understood, there's no need for animosity. When unity is understood, there's no need for hatred. When unity is understood, there's no need for wars. When unity is understood, there are no differences of opinion. There are no opinions. There's only God. And God is reality. Reality without attachment to the world. Reality becomes quite different than what we see in the world. In the world, we see lots of different languages. In the reality of God, all is understood. In the world, there are many different nationalities. In unity, there are only the souls. Only the souls, and all the souls are part of what was given off by God. In the world, there are many different religions, and they're constantly at odds with each other. In reality, does God have a religion? Does God need a religion? Does God need to label himself within the confines of something that is restricted, or is God beyond restriction? When we can begin to understand this way of thinking, we can remove ourselves from the difficulties that we bring ourselves in by not thinking this way, by thinking secularly, by thinking in the illusory way of races, nationalities, religions, different differences. We begin to create real difficulty for ourselves. And we create difficulty for those around us. We need to escape from illusion. We need to escape from the trauma of this world that is not a stable place. We need to find shelter. If there's a hurricane outside, you don't go stepping into the hurricane. You find shelter. If there are tornadoes, you go in the basement to find shelter. We have to find shelter from illusion. And that shelter is found in prayer. That shelter is found in the divine qualities. That shelter is found in being non-judgmental. That shelter is found by absorbing mercy and compassion and love and justice. God, in his mercy, has allowed us to feel his divine qualities. What can be more of a gift to us than God giving us of himself? So instead of finding all of these issues in the world to latch on to what God gives you. Latch on to his qualities that he has made available for us so that we can know truth. And in knowing truth, we will know him. And if our truth rises to the level of a transcendence and the level of reality, we will die before death and we will understand the true nature of existence and we will come to know the God that is within ourselves. We'll come to know our own soul and we'll be free from the attachments of the world and free from the elemental uprisings and the elemental conflicts that are constantly going on. May that kind of peace come to each one of us. May that kind of peace bring our hearts into stability and into calm. May we all know that peace, and may we all know God our Father, and may he help us to come to that place where we are joined with him. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.